you want to clarify now?
I have one question.
Okay.
No, this is only among us, right?
It is only among us.
Among us. But it should. The purpose of this also is to that our.
Okay, it is going live.
Oh,
so we
okay.
are we are live.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Go ahead.
All right.
Okay. Yeah. Because,
yeah.
That's all.
Yeah, we can discuss that as we go, sir. Since we are already live, we should get started. Anyway, namaskaram everyone. This is Gokul Chandramowli. Before we commence this session, I would like to start with a small prayer from Smt Bhagavatam. Yontah pravishya mama vacham imam prasuttam sanjeevayat yakhila shaktidhara swadhamna anyanscha hasta charana shravanatvagadin प्राणान् नमो भगवते पुरुषाय तुभ्यं हर हर पार्वती हर महादेव. So, namaskaram to everyone that is viewing this program live on YouTube and Facebook. This is Gokul Chandramowli. It gives us immense pleasure to be a part of this discussion session on Tyagaraja Swami and his contributions to Carnatic music and even broadly. Today I am joined by great musicians, musicologists, rasikas from DC, Maryland, Virginia area, very senior people, many of whom I look up to personally as role models. And it's a huge blessing to share the virtual platform with these people and learn from them and know their thoughts about Tyagaraja Swami, how they have enjoyed Tyagaraja Swami's compositions and his contributions. So we have with us Shri Shivakumar, Professor Shivakumar, as we all know him. We also have Shivakumar Jagadisan sir, Subash Vinjamuri garu, and Hema Murali madam. All of them veterans, and each of them have made great contributions to the musical system that thrives in our location. Not only to SSVT, although this is an SSVT program, I must acknowledge their contributions to SSVT and the musical system that SSVT has set up for us. But at the same time, more broadly to this community, all of them have made huge contributions that we are all very, very thankful for. So the topic for today's discussion is Tyagaraja Swami and his contributions. When we think about Tyagaraja Swami and his contributions, one can think about a number of things. So let me try to sort of frame this discussion around three pertinent topics that we will go into. The first topic is his contributions to music, to the musical aspect of Carnatic music. Tyagaraja Swami has made immense contributions to the Sangeetam, or the musical aspect. For instance, he has composed a vast variety of compositions that can cater to a wide variety of audiences. So be it a very small child, or if we are just interested in getting a child started into Carnatic music, we can teach that child compositions like Paripalaya, Paripalaya. Very, very simple Riti Gaula, very simple Gamakams. There are so many Namavalis of that type. Vandanamu Raghunandana, the Ragam Sahana, for instance, they can get, and they will get into Dandamu Bette Lura. So very catchy tune. Dandamu Bette Lura, Dandapani Judara. Very catchy tunes, very, very catchy ragams. So something that will get the child and a lay person interested into music. On the other end of the spectrum, there are compositions that are so weighty, which will put the best of the musicians. They have to work for many hours, many months, sometimes many years in some cases, to get a proper grasp of those compositions. Compositions like, say, Nahiri, Adeshri, the Pancharatna Kirtanams, and many, many, many such examples. These are really, really Karu, Baru, and Kari. Getting the Gamakams right, getting the Pathantaram, getting the musical aspects, the Raga aspects of those compositions right, can be very hard. So he has composed a vast variety of compositions. Ragas, he has handled so many ragas, new ragas that have not been handled by composers before him, such as Janaranjani, Niravadhi Sukada, Ravichandrika, and ragams like, Jayanta Shri, Jayanta Sena. So such a small scalar ragams he has taken up, composed, and given us brilliant compositions for us to enjoy. Tala structures, he has explored vast variety of Tala structures. Mishra Chapu, Rupakam, Adi Talam. In Adi Talam, different Yedukku, jumper, Mishra jumper. So there are so many technical aspects to discuss. So that's the first contribution that we can think about from Tyagaraja Swami. The second contribution is through his Sahitya. The lyrics that he has used in his compositions, they cannot be considered a small joke. One has to spend many, many years contemplating on them, studying them, interacting with great stalwarts such as the people here on this panel to closely understand what is being conveyed in some of the compositions. However, even there he has covered a vast gamut. There are some compositions like Paripalaya, all these Namavali compositions, Divyanama compositions, and such simple compositions that even a child and a lay person can learn very easily and understand and appreciate and enjoy. At the same time, on the other hand of Sahitya, there are these compositions where he has done amazing wordplay, which will throw the greatest of Sanskrit and Telugu scholars to work. For instance, recently I was listening and learning to this composition, Mapala Velasika. So he has used that word Naga in the Charanam very, very intelligently. Naga Dipa Vinuta Naga Harirata Ninnu Vinagati Neruga. So if you see here, the first two Naga is Sanskritam Naga, which is the snake. In the second place, he has in Ninnu Vinagati. So that Na of that Ninnu Vina and Gati, Ga of that Gati, they join to form Naga. So he has used amazing wordplay of this type. In some other composition, Namurala Kimpavemi, that word Sugriva, in one place it is used to refer to, Hanuman's friend Sugriva, of the Vanara Sainya. Sugriva in Sanskritam means Sugriva, one who has a very beautiful throat, one who has a beautiful voice. So he's asking, am I not Sugriva? Am I not the one with the beautiful throat? Won't you listen to me? Won't you listen to my appeals? So like this, he has done multiple word plays. In yet another example, Javara Nuta Ja Javara Javara Nuta Ja Javara Bidau Javaraja Shrita Tyagaraja Javaraja Rudravani Surabhavani Yamuni Jivana Nishamu. So in that composition, he has used that. How can one even think about a letter like Ja and construct so many patterns with that Ja? In one place, Ja means Bhumi. In another place, it means archery. So beautiful that he has used these word plays, which can put everyone to test. Finally, his third layer of contributions is to a spiritual seeker. So let us say someone is like, I don't care about music. I don't know grammar. I don't know anything. I am in a world of my own. I want to go inward and look into myself and understand the truth. I want to understand my own truth. Also, I want to understand what Supreme is. I also want to understand the relationship of me, the Supreme, and the universe that I see. So let's say someone is on that kind of a path. Tyagaraja Swami has something for him also. He has composed such deep compositions that are literally the essence of the Bhagavad Gita, the Vedas, and the Vedantas. So that is, compositions like Nadachi Nadachi, for instance, Dvaitamu Sukhama, Paramatmudu. So they all explain these great philosophical concepts in depth. Likewise, he has also, talked about the greatness of Bhakti Marga. People who say, no, all these things I don't care about. I don't want to go inside. I don't want to do all that. I know Rama. I only want to surrender to Rama. I want to surrender to Shiva or Parvati. How do I do that? How do I get motivated? Go to Tyagaraja Swami and you will see compositions like Chakkani Raja Margamundu, Rama Bhakti Samrajya that describe the greatness of the Bhakti Marga in great. So this, like this, he has made such a great contribution. I know Subash Garu is probably laughing at the fact that I'm talking too much, but I'm coming. I want to I want to very soon. I just wanted to give a frame for this.
You have not given any chance for it. You have not given any chance for us to talk anything more.
No, I only wanted to give a very, very brief overview, and before I moved on to Professor Shivakumar. So likewise, he has catered to everyone's needs, and such a great composer he is. So after this, I'm going to literally just shut up and listen to all the others in this panel and learn from all of you. So with that, let us start with yes, Subhash, you were saying something.
No. Your explanation, everything is complete. So nothing more to discuss.
No. That was not the.
It's really. It's very good.
We can just go, I agree.
No, we don't want that to happen. We don't want that to happen. So anyway, so that's the general frame in which I think most of us, we think about Tyagaraja Swami's contributions. So with that, I would like to invite Professor Shivakumar sir to discuss his thoughts and share his views on how he has enjoyed Tyagaraja Swami.
Thank you, Dr. Gokul Iyer, and good morning to all the other participants. Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha, Harihi Om, Bhadran Dadhatu, Om Shanti Shanti Shanti, Arivile Telivu, Nenjile Urudi, Agattile Andinor Vellam, Purigalin Meedu Taniyara Shanai, Puvudallam Ninadu Perarulin Nerile Natam, Karma Yogatil Ninaitadal, Endri Vai Anaithium Enakuni Arulvoy. Namaste to one and all. Best wishes for good health, safety, and COVID-free life, at least by middle of 2022, by divine grace to one and all. At the outset, I like to thank SSVT Cultural Committee, especially Raghu and Kumar and the Raji and the other committee members, and also for including me as part of the participant in this panel discussion as part of the Tyagaraja Aradhana celebrations for today, January 29th, yesterday, January 29th, today, January 30th. It's coincidental that we are talking about Lord Rama, who belongs to the Surya Vamsham, and today is Sunday, very aptly suited for Surya, and Tyagaraja has done a very good job of telling that he is the Kamalapta Kula in Vrindavana Saranga song, essentially telling that he belongs to that Vamsham. With that, I just thought I'll tell you, I'll start. I like to point out that the Aradhana should be really called the Nada Brahmananda Aradhana, because Tyagaraja's real name was changed to that name as Nada Brahmananda when he took sannyasam just 4 days before his demise in the Bushya Kauli Panchami day in 1847. As you all know that sannyasam is considered to be the second birth and people change their name. This was the name that was given to Tyagaraja upon upon getting sannyasam. Therefore, I just thought that I will mention that as a fact that if you had not known it, and I also urge from now on that SSVT may be perhaps the first organization in the world, I might say, to celebrate the day as Nada Brahmananda Day. Parenthetically, we can write Saint Tyagaraja so that they know we are celebrating Tyagarajas, but really on his name in the future. It won't be an exaggeration if I say that one's heart melts the moment he or she listens to Tyagaraja's Kritis. The Aradhana done worldwide, especially at Thiruvayaru near Tanjavur for the last 175 years, reveals this greatness. In my analysis of his Kritis, I find that Tyagaraja's Kritis, numbering about 700 that I looked at, are mostly based on 200 plus ragas, and about Aditalam mostly, lesser in number in Rupakatam, and still fewer in Mishra Chapu. But most of his songs are mostly narrative of the incidents in Ramayana as portrayed by Valmiki, because apparently from what little I thought, he always came up with these songs as and when he was reading the things, starting right from his birth. In the first Gandam, he talked about Dinamadi Vamsha in Harikambodhi, about talking about it. Then, as I said in the beginning, Kamalapta Kula in Vrindavana Saranga. Then he takes us through all the situation when Tyagaraja, when Valmiki brings him, he is asking for Rama, and then immediately he takes him. Then he thinks that he always wanted to call himself as a Raja Rishi rather than a Brahma Rishi, Vishwamitra, and therefore he sings the song appreciating the handsomeness of Tyagaraja's hairs falling out in that Madhyamavati song. So
that is Alakalala.
Yeah. So
exactly.
most of the songs, if I looked at, were really based on that. I'll mention certain specific things also that I thought. I find that Tyagaraja's Kritis were very objective in nature. They display a sense of high detachment and equanimity, and he was really a true yogi in that sense because of the way his lyrics were written. Each song seems to have in its background his personal experience, a feeling or an occasion which has triggered the composition. This feature makes the composition very original, in my opinion, and also spontaneous. The classical song in Atana, which is generally sung as Bala Kanaka Maya, where he says Rara Ravati Deva, is when he really sees for a flash of a moment two young lads with bow and arrow who he thought was Rama and Lakshmana. And then similarly, when he was resting his lap on the Sitama's head in the Parvata, in the forest, this Devendra's son, being attracted by Sita's beauty, comes to him in the form of a crow, pricks her chest, and blood oozes out. And then as it comes down, Rama wakes up, and then he sees this crow looking at her like a typical husband. He gets mad, he picks up a grass, pushes the astram, and that song is very famous in Kundalavarali, Sara Sara Samare, which you can also see the lyrical beauty in order to indicate to us the beauty with which went to the target, like a typical angry husband protecting the wife, Sara Sara Samare, which is the beauty. And as I was thinking about that, I couldn't translate Kannadasan also, who in my opinion was a great in the film world. He writes, when somebody asked him, tell me in 2 lines the beauty of Sringara, Kadal, he says, Muttukkalo Kangal, Tittipado Kannam, Sanditha Velayil, Sindikave Illai, Tandu Vitten Yennai. He completes the whole process within that. Such was the beauty of the lyrics of Tyagaraja, also in every one of sing with great bhava. Another most celebrated song is, of course, Nagumamu Galade in Abere, which you all know was sung when Vibhishana really asks Ravana to leave Sita. He refuses, he banishes him, he comes down, and that's when the famous Saranagati slogam is Sarvaloga Saranyaya Raghavaya Mahatmane Nivedaya Tamam Chipram Vibhishanam Upastitam. I've left everything, I am totally at your surrender, please accept me. And then everybody else fights. Actually, that is a very illustrative place in Almiki Ramayanam. He talks about that, and Tyagaraja depicts very beautifully the anguish and the pathos and the mindset of Vibhishana in that Nagumomu song. Sometimes I wonder whether when musicians sing that in a jubilant way, whether they have truly understood the impact of that song in the context in which it was written. I'm not accusing anything. I'm not a great person, but I somehow felt that sometimes when I listen to that Nagumomu Galade with great jubilance, that hey, this doesn't fit the scenario. And similarly, another occasion when his brother throws away the Vigraham because he was jealous and he didn't like it. His pathos, in fact, in my opinion, most of the songs, just like Mukesh songs in absolute anguish, comes out to be the best. Tyagaraja's best song, like in Vasanta Bhairavi, Ni Daya Radha, and then the other one in Sindhu Kannada, all of those songs were sung at that time, which are really excellent in terms to how anguished somebody is. And the same level of things have been portrayed in Valmiki, and those are reflected in all those songs during that time. And that is, I thought that's something I will share with. And then again, he has when one looks at the song, as soon then when he was so happy getting the Vigraham, he sings that famous Asaveri song, Rara Rama Intiki Radha King, inviting Rama to his house. So one can clearly see that Tyagaraja has a fusion of Sangeetam, as Dr. Gokul Iyer referred to in the introduction, Sangeetam, Sahityam, Bhakti, and they serve as proof of his literary greatness and musical genius. To the educated as well as to the uneducated lay listener, his songs provide such mental satisfaction, happiness, peace. I have literally seen as a youngster living in the village where I was born in Kulithale near Trichy, this during the Ramanami festivals, when people are coming in rickshaws and Kudravandi, Matuvandi and all of those fellows will be listening, as well as those Petromax light carriers fellows. They will all be enjoying and jumping in joy when GNB or Madhuramani used to sing Sarasa Samadana or Niravati Sugada, Mamavam Maragada, all of that. I will literally see that scene in my mind. So besides being a great composer, Tyagaraja was, in my opinion, a great teacher for all of us, in the sense that through his songs, we can learn how to lead a good life. Because his songs were mostly based on Rama, who was human being, as being the son of Dasaratha, who went through the trials and tribulations. Tyagaraja, most of the songs, as I said, narrates all that. And to us, he gives us many of the same things that Rama faced, and therefore we can try to look at that. Some of the songs are really Ramani Samanam Evaru. It's really full of values. When we leave, when people say eulogy, they don't say, well, he died with $2 million. They always say what kind of legacy he had based on values and things like that. And that is where Tyagaraja really takes us. And in second way, if you really look at his Yeta Unara or his Charu Kesi Todi Galade, or not sung often, one of the best Todi songs, Yemani Matlada, he talks a lot about communication. He is really telling Lakshmana, look at this Anjaneya. He seems to be a Navavyakarana Pandita in the Charu Kesi second stanza and things like that. To us, it's really very important to know how effective he is saying about the importance of communication. Again, same idea that was done even in philosophically about the name attributed to Govinda. Govinda name, Mahaprabhu said one time, always attributes the three essential things that all of us want in life: the ability of leadership, the communication, and the knowledge. All of those things are there represented in any of the songs of Rama as done by Tyagaraja. In the Pariyachakama, in Vanaspati, he talks about ethics. Hey, I heard that you are such a fair-minded person. You gave it to Draupadi, you gave it to Gajendra. I am yelling like, you see me to be a fair person, but you don't seem to be fair. You are not coming to me. Really is talking about ethics. So when you really look at all of those things, he really gives us the good knowledge. And of course, his Nadopasana Kritis is a final analysis of strategy that we talk about in our management lecture. He says, through the Nadopasana Kritis, you don't have to do anything, as Gokul Iyer was referring to. He says, once you do these things, you are guaranteed moksham. At least in other places, you have to do this. Just Kolahala Sapta Swara, he says, from the Adi Mooladharam. You take it all the way to Sirasa, and based on, of course, the Swararnavam given to him by Narada, the whole thing is based on that. But the essence for all of us to know is that he is a strategy guy in that way. Was he that only that? He also tells us the both things. Like a typical person, he always has Ninda Stuti songs about Tyagaraja. He says, you didn't do this. But then in retrospect, he says, well, I think I did deserve it. Even in Tudugu Galade, he says, well, I know you are not giving me darshan because, I was very lustful. I was after women. I was after money and things like that. But in reality, we know that he was not. He's only depicting our state through him as a representative and things like that. So most of these things, if we look at that, he looks at that, and then even as I said, he also talks in Janaranjani, Smarane Sukhamu, he talks about that, any one of the songs. So in final analysis, I like to conclude by saying that Tyagaraja has tried his best to infuse the art of music into the heart of literature and vice versa. No wonder through his songs, he will remain immortal in our hearts and our minds as long as music exists. And I just want to say thank you. I'll have other things for the next question. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, sir. So one thing I learned is for us to even frame about his thinking from your discussion. There are a lot of things that we will come to that in the discussion. But one thing that was very pertinent and I would like to highlight here for all of us and for the listeners here, when we think about Tyagaraja Swami's contributions, typically we say, okay, there is a musical contribution, there's a Sahitya contribution, there is a spiritual contribution, but what you highlighted, and that really struck me, he has also given a contribution on how to lead a life. And that is that is a wonderful way of looking at his some of his compositions like Ramani Samanam, even in compositions like Karuna Yela Gante in the Raga Varali. You might know that he has discussed, what all one should do. Suryuni Marudu, do Sandhya Vandanam basically he's saying.
Yes.
So those kinds of things he has mentioned in his compositions. Anyway, so he's a Tyagaraja Swami while Tyagaraja Swami is a role model in his own right. Shivakumar sir, you are a role model for a lot of us to, in one way, how to enjoy all these different things together. And how to put things together from multiple composers, from multiple languages, from multiple aspects. So thank you for those wonderful thoughts.
Thank you.
So I would now request Subhash Garu to offer his views about Tyagaraja Swami, his thoughts, and how he has enjoyed Tyagaraja Swami's compositions. Let us start with the musical aspect, and then we'll see how we go on to the other aspect. Sir, please remember to unmute yourself.
Yes. Thank you, everyone. Now, Tyagaraja's music. That music is sometimes very catchy, even for the layman, as Professor Shivakumar was telling. Sometimes it's very difficult unless you are a Vidwan. You understand thoroughly the music, the depth of music. You can't appreciate some of the ragas, even Shankarabharana ragam, very popular ragam. But some aspects of it is, unless we have that music knowledge, only scholars can appreciate that music too, as a layman. And then that is one aspect. And then his music is according to the meaning of the Kruti he composed. He composed means he didn't think, it came out like that. Sometimes he starts in the very low voice and then goes to the upper octave. Why there and why not it be in the bass, and then what we sang in the bass need be in the higher octave low. For example, my voice is not that good now. For some years. He's just telling Moksha Magalada, explaining to the people around him or to his own self. Then Sakshatkara ni Sadbhakti, he gives a statement. Sakshatkara, the statement should be heard by everybody. So Sakshatkara ni. So he went so that everyone will be able to listen to it. Sakshatkara ni Sadbhakti, Sangeeta Jnana Vihimulaku. Those who have no knowledge of music, he somehow declares there is no moksha, no salvation. It's amazing. Not that everybody, but as we see, even the fishermen or laymen sometimes sing something, but it has some musical aspect of it. Sometimes it is also said the Kamboja raga, some of the ragas are came from folk music. Even the Cambodians, which is very heavy raga. If you see C. Subramanya Namaste or Yavare Matalu, it's a very heavily, but it is also a folk raga, and people took that raga in folk music also. So this music, the way he selects a raga also depends on the lyrics and what he wants to convey. Through that raga, it is easily understood than some other raga. Okay. So, for example, Yankanine Varnintu Sabari. Mukari is not sad, but the devotion at a particular aspect, has some sadness. It's not sadness, but because the Bhakti Bhava, you want the Lord to appear before you and give salvation, which is a little sadness in that. So, Yantanine Varnintu Sabari Bhagyamu. So many ladies are there in the kingdom of Rama and Ayodhya and elsewhere. Very rich people, very beautiful, so many. She is just a lay lady and forest lady, who has no culture or anything. But her Bhakti Bhava is supreme to anybody. See, and then he does in the Bukhari. Varnintunu Sabari See that way, how he is. In that Bhakti Baba, he actually, what to call it, he took bath, he bathed in that Bhakti. And looking at the Bhakti Baba of Sabari, see the Sahitya and the music goes. And if it is in some other ragam, like in second, then it never if you say like that, does it convey the meaning of what he wants to? See, that Bhakti Bhava, that particular raga he took like that. And the places where he gives, the Pallavi starting point, sometimes it may be in the upper octave, sometimes in the base, sometimes in Panchamam. Okay? The fifth note, not upper, not in the, like that, he has selected several ragas, and also when he says some statements, he has given many statements, and that raga really attributes to that statement. For example, Harikamboj raga, of course, he composed many things like Dinamani Vansa, Yantarali, so many things, so many Raman Anubravara, so many. But when he says, Unde Dira Mudokadu Puraka Chedipo Ebanasa, should be very appealing to the people around. So who listen to it should understand that raga is not hard, that raga is not, just like Anthony Never into Sabari, not Bhakti Bhava, but Unde Tira Budokadu. And he stresses with the Sangatis are also reason why Unde Tira Budokadu, that's one time is enough. But why several times? Because the musical aspect, the music, the Harikamboji, and the statement he is emphasizing, not just saying in one word, next thing. So he's going up. So he's much more, giving the force and the statement, the value to his statement by saying, the second Sangati. So like that is the lyrics and the music and the ragas, they all go together. So this, if you take like Yantavedu Kondavara, Saraswati Manohar, it's a beautiful raga. And the Janya of Arikamboji, Sariga Madasa, Sadani Pamagarisa. So Yantavedu Kondavara, Vedu Kondavara, is started even though from Daivatam, he has come down. You can't demand God and say like this. That's why the meaning carries a demand, but still, O Raghava. The music there. The phrases and the music, Swarakalpa, Swaras. Then comes Melodo. So Rama should hear. So he goes up. And then good. And then music, again the music part. See that music, he brings the ragam. Why that particular is the music part. Right. How reluctant you are to take away my vadis. You are not listening to me. But at the same time, music. So that is the beauty of Tyagaraja. The way that he selects a raga, the way he conveys it through his tune, and the swaras, the group of swaras that he makes, the phrases he makes, is really amazing. And every song, the ragam is fully heard. తెలియలేరు రామపతి మగములు తెలియలేరు. See the ragam. Of course, you are all singers. I am not a singer. So I'm trying to convey it because I'm forced to sing with my bad tonal quality.
No, sir. This is great.
So, Dhenuka ragam he has taken. Then he tells, even the lyrics he tells, when you think of Rama, you should know him, what he is. So what qualities he is, he has, and why we need to worship him, and in what way we need to worship him. Just as the king of Ayodhya or the son of Dasratha, no, many other things. So, see the music. Again, raga is there. So, Telesi raga, that Purnachandrika ragam, the way that the meaning is also conveyed, tell us you know the Rama. That's why he said, they get up early in the morning and then put Namam or Vibhuti and drown in Ganges. What's the use of it? When you don't have the devotion and understand Rama is. So like that, if you go on telling every song has lyrical value, musical value, the Bhakti Bhava and what he wanted to convey is available to everybody who is musically ignorant to great Vidwans. And is as his talam and everything, when you say, the way it is set to the talam, the way it is set to the ragam, the way he conveys meaning, the way he tuned, everything has such a deep meaning in that.
Right.
And as the professors are said in Nagumomu, it should be, when I teach, that sadness I bring, that Nagumomu, the reason why he was selling Nagumomu is he became old and he those days, no glasses are there. So he had the vision problem and he was unable to see the smiling face of Lord Rama.
Right.
So he's cursing, you see, Nagumomu so he's cursing himself. I'm unable to see. In a very pathetic way, very pathetic, but it's not tragedy. It's just, in Bhakti Bhava, that pathetic. So we need to do that one.
Gokul, we have a second question and the two poor members are there. It's 11:40.
Yeah, exactly. Yes. Thank you. No, I was not able to, I know Subash Garu, was in a nice flow. So I didn't want to interrupt that. But anyway, I know we have some time as well. Raghu sir has kindly offered us until 12:15. So maybe we can, leave it free. We don't have to, touch upon the second question particularly, but we can just go to Shivakumar sir next very soon. But one point I want to emphasize about, Vinjamuri sir's comments. First of all, that, the lyrics and the music go hand in hand. But one pertinent thing that I have enjoyed about Tyagaraja Swami's compositions is how, right in the first line, in the Pallavi, suppose you think of a rare ragam like Saraswati Manohari, which you won't sing often, you don't have many compositions in that ragam. I know Shivakumar sir will have thoughts about Dikshitar Saraswati Manohari and how that compares with Tyagaraja Swami's Saraswati Manohari. I don't want to get there, but still, let's say we don't have many compositions in that ragam, and somehow you just blank out on that Arohanam Avaroham. Is it Sarigama Dasa? Is it Sarigama Danisa? Sarigama Nidasa? What is it? You don't have to do anything. Just sing the Pallavi line, everything will come. And that Arohanam Avarohanam will stand in front of you, which is something I have really enjoyed about Tyagaraja Swami's compositions. In these rare ragams, you will find the scale of that ragam in the Pallavi itself. Anyway, so with that, thank you so much, Subash Garu. Hopefully, we will have time to come back for another round of comments. But let us move on to Hema, madam, if that is okay with you, sir, because I know madam has a hard stop, is what I heard. At some
I have some problems, but anyhow, I will start on the musical attributes of Tyagaraja.
Okay.
Various elements of music all around him influenced him and got him to create the phenomenal number of compositions that thrill us all the time. Starting with the influence of Western band music. The first song I learned was Ramin Suva Revara in Suposhini, Janya Raga of Harikambodi, created by the raga was created by Tyagaraja. He uses Shankarabharanam in the Dikshita Notuswaram manner in Gata Moha Shrutabala, Sarasa Netra Palayamam, and Varalila Ganalola. However, he composed with the similar pattern but not copying the exact tune of the band's music, which is what Dikshita did. Whether it is hearing the Western band that impressed him or what did trigger him to compose such simple and attractive songs with plain notes and without any gamakas of any kind is not known. Tyagaraja gave life to several unusual ragams, some created by him and others that they were merely noted scales, as said by Sri Ram V. Professor Sambamurthy in his Great Composers, Volume 2, lists 83 Janya ragams and 22 Melakarta ragams in which Tyagaraja composed songs for the first time. The many ragams performed today are Malaya Marutam, Chitta Ranjani, Jayanta Shri, Saramati, Kalyana Vasantam, Mahabogi, Devamrita Varshini, Nalina Kanti, Kapi Narayani, Kuntala Varali, Chenju Kambodi, Navrasa Kannada, etc., etc. But after his life, these were most of them were created by him. After his life, these have become the staple of our concerts. He was open to the influence of the music he heard. Thus, for instance, Nalina Kanti was created from the music of Marathi theatre. What a brilliant and lovely ragam it is. Hearing Kapi Narayani is again an uplifting experience. Ecstatic is the Navanasa Kannada in Ninnuvina as sung by M.S. Amma and Mali. We can go on about these Janya ragams that have given its listeners so much pleasure. His Prahlada Bhakti Vijayamu is due to the influence of the Melatur, Bhagavata Mela, and Marathi theatre. In deference to those two, Tyagaraja used only the Bhakti of Prahlada with no mention of Hiranyakashipu or Narasimha. To him, the supreme being was Rama. Thus, Rama was the one that he talks about in Prahlada Bhakti Vijayamu. There's no Narasimha at all mentioned in it. This was probably in Nauka Charitramu, which again was probably influenced by Bengali Bhakti movement or Marathi theatre, he indulges in romantic drama. The clothes, the jewelry, the decorations of the gopis, and including the preparation of pan or vetrilai are described in great detail. This is also dedicated to Rama, even though it is about the frolics of Krishna. Due possibly to our Victorian attitude, not one of this opus is adopted for singing in concerts, except possibly Gandamu Puyagu Panniru. But Tyagaraja himself was subject to Victorian morals. In Tuduku Kala, Yenta Nerchina and others, he derides women and their influence on men. The influence of Tamil pun music is his amazing exposure to Karikambodi and Karaharapriya. How Tyagaraja was exposed to these is not recorded, nor how he managed to create them. Kodi Palai is the pun on which Karaharapriya is based. Papanasham Shivan gave elements that were not used by Tyagaraja in his compositions, just completing the ragam. Karaharapriya has finally been recreated by all our great singers. Hearing the cascade of sangatis in each of his compositions is an unforgettable experience. These sangatis are an impressive feature, as for example in Namravali Gimpavo, Shirasagra Shayana in Devagandhari, Dorakuna, Najivadara, Kanukonti in Bilahari, and so on. Tyagaraja himself created most of these sangatis as seen by the various schools that derived from his disciples, all following the same sangati pattern. Harikambodi is an old important pun called Shempalai. Many Tevarams have been set in this pun and must have influenced Tyagaraja when listening to this music from the Tiruvarur temple. Exquisite examples of these ragams are in Yantaranitana, Yenduku Nirdaya, Shani Todi Teva, etc. He must have criticized for going after this Tamil, old ancient Tamil pun. That is why this criticism might have been caused him to create a song like Vararagalaya. I have read a lot of pieces and heard lectums by Sri Ramvi and Sri R.K. Sri Ram Kumar. Much of what I say is what I remember from hearing and reading their oeuvres. Thank you.
Thank you so much, madam. This was a wonderful summary of some of the sources of inspiration of what could have been some of the sources of inspiration for Tyagaraja Swami. When you were discussing about the Pan music and its influence, one thing that struck me and that I've also heard from elder musicians, including my uncle, comment about it is this Pidiyadan Uru Umai, which is a Tevaram composed by Tirudhyana Sambandar, is in the Pan called Vyala Kurunji, which is basically Saurashtra. And that is one of the rare Tevarams in which Jnana Sambandar has made reference to Lord Ganesha. And it's very coincidental, whether it is coincidental or not, we don't know. But our famous Sri Ganapatini has a very, very similar mette, Varna mette. And it's also in that same ragam, which is the Saurashtram. And the Pan name is Vyala Kurunji. So he has also used, maybe he has followed footsteps of Tirudhyana Sambandar in that. There is some, people have opined along those lines.
The important point is that he was so open to the nuances of music that were around him. Not that he was only sticking to what he knew or, that kind of superiority he did not have, which is the reason why he was able to create the kind of compositions that he did.
And give the variety as well. Such a wide variety.
Yes.
Amazing. That is amazing. That is amazing.
Very humble.
Very well said. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much, madam. So with that, let us move on to Shivakumar Jagadishan sir for his thoughts and how he has enjoyed Tyagaraja Swami.
Namaste, everybody. As a panelist, I guess I'm obligated to speak. Otherwise, I would prefer to listen to all the wonderful insights from my co-panelists. Before, I had two small nuggets, one about the music side, one about the lyric side. What I would like to do is, with your permission, Gokul, combine the two. Now, as I was listening to other panelists, Subash Garu mentioned how the music fitted the lyrics, and Hema Madam also talked about Shira Sagara Sayana for the Sangati progression. I was reminded of a lectum by Sri Lalgudi Jayaraman where he talks about Kshira Sagara, where all the Sangatis are on Kshira Sagara, but Sayana is always Sayana. There is no Sangati on that phrase because to go with the meaning. So I was reminded of that. And as some of you know, I time to time conduct quiz programs, and I have to come up with some quirky questions. And one of my questions that I was kind of happy with that was, I asked the audience, prove that the Tyagaraja created a time machine. And so the answer is, he talks about all the, Prahalada, in Prahalada Bhakti Vijayam, references are to Rama Avataram, Rama, even though the Narasimha Avataram predates Rama Avataram. So I was reminded of that. And so there is so much, it's a Tyagaraja is a quiz master's delight, because there is so much of interesting colloquialisms. He uses the word Ganga Sagaramu in Chakkani Rajamargamu, where it's a euphemism for toddy. So there are a lot of Panikiradu is a colloquialism that he uses for it won't work. It's actually it is and proverbs like Talaku Vachina Bada Talapaga Kusedu. And there is in fact, in one Kriti, I don't remember the Kriti, where he talks about Vibhishanku Pattanamu Betti. So Ranganatha, Vibhishana wants to take Ranganatha to Sri Lanka, but Ranganatha decides to stay back in Sri Rangam. So the Pattanamam Vetti is to disappoint somebody, and that's another colloquialism, which of course, some people have objected to that colloquialism, but somehow it happened. So what I would like to get back to a couple of points which I had kind of wanted to touch upon on the music side, to comprehensively cover the various musical contributions of Tyagaraja is not going to, time is not, it's a long legdom for that. One needs that. As we know that there are two Melakarta nomenclatures, Melakarta systems in Carnatic music. The traditional one by Venkatamaki and elaborated by Muddu Venkatamaki was used by Muthuswami Dikshitar, and they're called Raganga Ragas, and also informally referred to as Asampurna Melas. The reason being, in every Melakarta Ragam, the only requirement was all the 7 swarams had to be present, Sarigama Padanisa. But these swarams need not occur in both Arohanam and Avarohanam. And often, more often than not, these swarams were in a Vakra Prayogam or Varjya Prayogam. That is where you either skip notes or you go forward and backward. That's the Vakra Prayogam, as opposed to a Sarigama Padanisa Sanitapa Magarisa Prayogam. So, and without going too much into the various Raganga Ragas, that was used by Dikshitar, and Dikshitar made it a point to compose in every Raganga Raga, each of the 72. Now, in the musical work Sangaraga Chudamani, author Govinda introduced Krama Sampurna Mela. So he basically created 72 Melakartas where the Krama Sampurnam, Sarigama Padanisa Sanidapa Magarisa Prayogam was allowed. And many of the Raganga Ragas simply became prominent Jani Ragas of these Krama Sampurna Melakarta Ragas. And he was a contemporary of Tyagaraja. We don't know much about Govinda, the musicologist, but Tyagaraja followed that. Yet another example of where he was willing to take the works, embrace the works of others, in this case, even a contemporary. And Tyagaraja followed that system, and that has now become like the de facto standard. The Raganga-based system is pretty much confined to Dikshitar Kritis. The Tyagaraja system has become the kind of the de facto standard in Carnatic music. And so the way he embraced the standard was he didn't set out to compose in all the 72 Melakartas, but he composed in many Melakarta Ragas, especially on the Shuddha Madhyamam half. So he composed in Vanaspati, Manavati, Denuka, Kokilapriya, Rupavati, Vakulabaranam, Suryakantam, Jangaradhvani, Natabhairavi, Kiravani, Gauri Manohari, Mararanjani, Charukesi, Sarasangi, Naganandini, Gangeya Bhushani, Vagadiswari, Shulini, Navanitam, Bhavapriya, Shubhapanturali, Shadvita Margani, Divyamani, Kamavardhini, Ramapriya, Shanmukapriya, Kantamani, Rishabhapriya, Vachaspati, Kalyani. So, most of these are in the Shuddha Madhyama Ragas. And notably, all the Melakartas, most of the Melakartas I've listed, he has only composed one Kriti. So it is very evident. I mean, he has composed many Kritis in Saurashtram and Kapi and, Thodi and Bhairavi and Shankarabharanam. But in all these Melakartas, like even non-Vivadi Melakartas, because Vivadi Swarams are always challenging, non-Vivadi Melakartas like Vakulabaranam, Suryakantam, Jangaradhvani, Natabhairavi, Kiravani, Gauri Manohari, he has just composed one Kriti, basically as a musicologist, as somebody, he just didn't give a bunch of good, wonderful compositions. He gave us like a foundation, a framework for subsequent composers to build on. And that is an outstanding contribution to Carnatic music, because it's almost like patenting some new technology. And then others basically spin off of the core underlying concept. And they keep coming up with, we have beautiful compositions in Kiravani and, Charukesi and others from other composers who came after Tyagaraja. but he kind of laid the foundation. And all it is as though he had a point to make. He said, look, I'm going to stick to the traditional ragas for composing all these kritis, because my focus is on the kriti, on the bhakti. But I'm also going to note these Dhenuka is a Melakarta raga. I'm going to compose one. Charukesi, yes. Suryakantam, Sarasangi. He has composed in all those Mara Ranjani and Vagadiswari. In all the Melakarta ragas, he has composed one kriti to basically make a point. And interestingly, in many cases, he also took the Raganga Raga equivalent and composed them also in them too. And again, for example, Vegavahini, Challaganato. Of course, my uncle Professor S.R. Janakraman talks about the difference in the way Dikshadhar has handled Vegavahini as opposed to Tyagaraja. But still, so he was also cognizant of the other system, and he wanted to represent that. Manoranjani. Manoranjani is the equivalent of Manavati in the other system. So he has composed in Manoranjani, in Binnasajram, Vegavahini, Vasanta Bhairavi. Vasanta Bhairavi is the Raganga Raga equivalent of Vakulavarnam. So he has composed in Vasanta Bhairavi. In fact, he has composed more than one in Vasanta Bhairavi. But he has composed in Vakulavarnam, A. Ramuni. And there he makes it a point to explore the phrases which are not legal in the Raganga system. The non-Varjya Prayogam, the full Krama Sampurna Prayogams. So there was some deliberation there. I mean, his feelings and Sahityam could have been outpourings, but there has also been some deliberation in the way he set about setting a platform for the future. And Gokul, you mentioned how he indicated the Raga Chaya, the Arohanam Avarohanam right in the beginning. Kiranavadi. Yeti yochanalu sapa magari. He starts with Avarohanam, which basically is the distinguishing factor. Because Arohanam is same as Kiravani.
And even the other composition.
Parakuni kelara.
More than what is
Rama barra mabadani sapa magari sarega babadani sapa. That's it.
Right.
The whole raga definition is there in the first line.
Exactly.
And so that was one thing I wanted to draw attention to from a music point of view.
So before you move on, I just wanted to make just a couple of thoughts that struck me when you were mentioning how he has laid the framework for other musicians to follow. One is that he has laid the framework for not Melakarta Radanga Ragas and those kinds of ragams, and even these like Sampurna Melakarta ragams that he has composed in like Manavati and all those. But he has also inspired his disciples to follow on the smaller ragams that he has composed. But he must have composed only one composition. For example, Palamanjari. There is only that Sanatana Paramapava. Patnam Subramaniar took the cue from that. He said, okay, now why can't we do something in Rupakam? He did that. He also composed one Deshadi. Likewise, if Tyagaraja Swami has not composed one composition, say in Kararapriya, he has composed so many compositions in Kararapriya. But he forgot Deshadi Thalam in Kararapriya. That typical one Kale Deshadi.
Right.
And Patnam has taken it up.
Right.
So, he has, so basically what Tyagaraja Swami did was he has laid a foundation for so many composers after that. Patnam, not only, I'm just mentioning Patnam as an example, who then handled some Melakarta ragams that Tyagaraja Swami has done. Tyagaraja Swami has Latangi, even Sarasangi, for instance, because Tyagaraja Swami only focused on that Nenarunchara, right?
Simhavahini. But technically there is a Sarasangi composition of Tyagaraja, interestingly.
Okay.
Yes, but the only thing is when I looked at the lyrics, I can understand why Vidwans don't sing that.
They don't sing.
It's a little bit more of not the usual subtlety of Tyagaraja.
Likewise, even Latangi, I believe, right? There was that
Latangi, that Diname Sudinamu is misattributed to Tyagaraja. There are quite a few misattributed compositions to Tyagaraja. Dharmavati, for example, he didn't compose, but
he did compose.
But his disciple Mysore Vasudevacharya composed beautifully in Dharmavati.
Exactly.
Yes.
Likewise, even Puchi Srinivasa. And then, needless to say, how he has inspired Papanasam Shivam. That is such a great inspiration.
Yes, of course.
How can Just imagine how much he must have been inspired by Tyagaraja Swami to take the similar tunes and then,
Right.
Put Tamil lyrics to them.
Right.
That is great source of inspiration.
Absolutely.
That is why it was
Absolutely.
called Tamil Tyagaya.
Tamil Tyagaya, exactly.
Yeah.
So we have to acknowledge that. We have why I wanted to
Yeah.
interrupt you, sir. This was to emphasize that he is a great source of inspiration for centuries of musicians, and to this date, you see, to this date, even today's composers will follow suit Tyagaraja Swami. If you don't know who the composer is, and if you listen to a Telugu composition, you will say, oh, maybe Tyagaraja Swami.
Yeah.
And if the word
So much
Tyagaraja appears, if the word Tyagaraja appears, then
right.
we'll be 100%
So,
sure,
yeah.
maybe this is Tyagaraja.
In fact, there is a composition where the author has used Tyagaraja, Sadguru Tyagaraja Pokadina. So people assume that it's a Tyagaraja composition, and Tyagaraja will not refer to himself as Sadguru. So it is the composer who is referring to Tyagaraja as Sadguru Tyagaraja Pokadina. So actually that leads to it's a segue into the second part of my thing about Tyagaraja's compositions. And as others have noted, Tyagaraja's compositions have three distinct dimensions: the music, the sahityam/poetry, and the bhakti and the spirituality. But Sadguru Tyagaraja Swami himself may not be very happy with this kind of analysis, because for him there is only one dimension, which is bhakti, because the purpose of music and language for him was just to the reason they exist is for bhakti. So he was one dimensional, but it is illustrative for us to separate the dimensions, because Rama was his Ishta Devata, and not only his Ishta Devata, but also a constant companion and a guiding light throughout his life. Likewise, for thousands of musicians and music lovers and students, Tyagaraja is the main guide in their musical journey.
Sure.
So, interestingly, many of them did not know or do not know even today the languages that he composed in. I am a prime example. I do not know Telugu or Sanskritam. But for a long time, it was just music for me. I mean, I don't want to make it a personal, but you did say right in the beginning you wanted us to share our experiences. So, so for a long time, it was just music for me. Of course, thanks to my guru and my uncle, Professor Sajjanik Raman, and I also my other family members who were all well versed in Telugu. Occasionally, they will talk about a sahityam of this composition versus that composition. It was in the back burner, but only not too long ago, I started looking at compositions, primarily thanks to a wonderful translation work by Sri T.S. Parthasarathi, who was a Music Academy secretary in the past, in the 70s and 80s, well versed in Telugu, Tamil, and Sanskrit. So he not only just gives the meaning, but he also gets into the metaphors and the colloquialism. The word Sugrivu, where he has used the term when he references how Rama saved people who were subject to turmoil by their brothers. He references Vibhishana, who didn't,
Vali.
Ravana and Vibhishana and Vali and Sugriva. And, we hear that Tyagaraja's brother himself, with respect to property division, there was some, he gave him a lot of heartache. So it's interesting how he uses the word Sugriva in a way. So Tyagaraja's, so I feel very blessed that somehow I got into this. I randomly open up the book and look at a composition, and it's so interesting to not just to understand the various metaphors that he has used. For example, Nada Sudara Sampilano, he uses the various musical terms, likens them to the Kodandapani, Sri Rama.
Yes.
In
Yes.
Banturi Tikolu, he talks about, I want to be a sevaka in your court, but my gear is the various aspects of Rama Bhakti become his gear. Romanjamane Kanakam Sukamu, etc. And his wordplay and rhyme, especially, are very rich in the Divinama Sankirtanam format. Vandana Murunandana, Rama Kodanda Rama. Because the rhymes and alliterations in these type of songs, where there are multiple charanams with the same dhatu, same music, they infuse some energy into the singer.
Right.
రామ నీదొక మాట రామ నాకొక మూట రామ నీ పాటే పాట రామ నీ బాటే పాట. So the rhyming words kind of, even for those who do not understand the language, that's the beauty. That's the beauty where, I don't think any other Tyagaraja composed all in Telugu and Sanskrit, but in the Tamil region he has got literally millions of devotees over time.
Correct.
So
Correct.
I mean that his words transcended knowledge of the language, and colloquialism, which I already talked about it, and the proverbs, and many times he just mentions a phrase, and that is like a pointer to a story in a Purana.
Correct.
Or some folklore.
Correct.
So it's for example, that Ganga Sagaramu as a colloquialism. My sister studied Telugu all the way up to BSc, but her knowledge was more bookish, not as much among the common people. So when I told her, Subash Garu told me that is the actual hidden meaning, she was surprised. So with every song, with every phrase, there is a story behind it, and the fact that it makes you go and so that's what a creator should not just give you something, an end product for you to consume. A creator also should make you go seek and
Exactly.
expand your knowledge and go find out, get you curious. Why does he use this word? For example, Vibhishana Pattanamamu Batti, I didn't understand. So I had to go through, so that's because Vibhishana wanted to do that. So our education system over time has become, there's less and less of study of our Puranas and all that. That's the demands of the time. But when you, I feel that when we talk about Tyagaraja's poetry, even for somebody who is not interested in music, okay, there is so much of richness. Unfortunately, people learn about Tyagaraja's music only if they're music students.
Right.
I was wondering why his poems, songs cannot be included in the poetry section in the language textbook.
Yep.
And so that even non-music students can benefit. I would
I will
like
be
to
the first to vote for that. I'll be the first to vote for that.
and he can be very, very flowery in his description, like aganita guna gana kanaka chela shala vitala naruna. I cannot pronounce Sanskrit that well unless I read it from. That is the last stanza of the Jagadandakaraka Pancharatnam.
Right.
Just it's flowery and flowing. On the other hand, he can also be super concise and stingy with words. In Sarasa Samadhana, he talks about Bedadanda. Okay, Nata Sagoduruni Raju Chesi Raka Hatamu Chesitivi. Nata Sagoduruni Raju Chesi. We all know who the Sagodara is, Vibhishana. Raka, a two-syllable word. That means, since everything else failed. So much is in that Raka. Because everything else failed, Hatamu Chesitivi. He resorted to the Dandam only because Samadana and Veda failed. So there you have the concise words. Same case with the Sivamantramanuku Majivamu, Madhava Mantramaku Rajivamu. He doesn't say, okay, if you take Ra from here and Ma from there and put it, it will become Rama. It's all left. It's an exercise to the listener. Right. You go do the work and figure it out. I don't have to tell you explicitly. That is a hallmark of great poetry. And I would like to just conclude with one, since you also mentioned Saurashtram and the source of Saurashtram. And of course, Vyaran Pan means Vyaran is also Guru.
Vyara Kurunji.
Vyara Kurunji.
Guru.
So Vyaran means Guru.
Guru.
So Sadguru, it's a fitting thing. In the of course, since Shivakumar sir talked about reference to Kadadasan, in one film song, the various names of Rama are discussed: Kodanda Rama, Kalyana Rama, Kausal Rama. Right. In that, there is one phrase: Madangala inaitadu Sivaraman. Okay, so Rama, Tyagaraja always talks about Shiva as Rasika of Rama Nama. Rama Rama Rasikudu Kailasa Sadanudu Sakshi. And Shankaraniki Telusumo, Rama Nama Mane, Vara Rama Nama Mane, Kanda Chakra, Misramu Chesi, Bujimche, Shankaraniki Telusuno. So it's another, Tyagaraja brings all the great different streams of Sanatana Dharma together in his compositions. In this composition, Deva Rama Rama Mahadeva Raghava, he sees Rama in Shiva and Shiva in Rama. Look at the charanam. Shankara, Karunakara, Anisham, Karadrita Shara, Bhakta Vashankara, Tanuja Hava, Nishankar Rasika Tyagaraja. The word Shankara comes in 4 different ways. Shankara as in Shiva, Anisham Karadrita, Anisham Karadrita, Shankara, Bhakta Vashankara, Bhakta Vashankara. Okay. And then Nishanka Rasika. Nishanka Rasika. So this is in Sanskrit.
I wonder, thank you for revealing this composition, which I have not heard before, sir. I wonder maybe this was a source of inspiration for Subramanya Dikshita for Shankaracharya, in which he used Bhakta Vashankara, Shankaraga Sita Yasho. So the Shankara keeps coming again and again like that.
And
so maybe this is a
they always,
you know,
I feel that when you reference earlier great works and repeat some ideas, you are not copying. You are propagating. You are propagating. You are propagating. You are inspired. You are propagating, and I think you are doing a great service because.
Oh, definitely.
So this, this is a very rare composition. Deva Rama Rama Mahadeva Raghava. There is only one recording when I did the search. I tried to learn it, and I actually sang it in a program, but I have to learn it properly from a guru. So anyway, it's I've taken too much time. Then allocate.
No, wonderful.
Thank you so much.
Wonderful. It was wonderful. I know. Absolutely. I know, Professor Shivakumar, you are dying to say something. I just wanted to emphasize one. Just go ahead, sir. Go ahead. Sir.
I just want to make sure that people understand, in addition to songs, he has also done something great in spreading the Rama Nama Mahimai. Most of the songs, because to him, he was also great. Now, you mentioned Vagadiswari and Subash Garu mentioned, Vagadiswari's song is ultimate in the Advaita philosophy, which seems to be the direct translation of the 15th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita. Aham Vaishwanaro Bhutva Praninam Degamasritaha Pranapana Samayuktaha Pachamyannam. Exactly the same idea is conveyed in the second stanza, Harihata and things like that in the Vagadiswari. In Mokshamu Galada, again, he talks about the Panchabhutangal and how the Mooladharatland is starting all the way to the Sirant, and then in the Akasham, Sa, last Sa comes like that. So he is able to provide us not only in Dvaita Musagama, Advaita Viswa, he questions that and then answers. So he, in addition to providing, and I just thought rather than being flabbering and things like that, Navavida Bhakti, he has done a lot on that.
He has done a lot on Navabheda.
Divyanama Sankirtanam, he has done. We all talk about Shodasha Upacharam. All his Utsava Sampradaya Kritis, even though they are so melodious, it looks like as if it is a marriage song between Tyagaraja Hecharikarara, starting that he comes like a Maplay with Gambir gateful nadai and things like that. But the fact is that Sankita is the 16 Shodasha Upacharam, which is all sung Napali, Srirama, and everything like a Paniki Ragati. So he has, in a nutshell, he has provided us Nadopasana Kritis. Those who don't want, he has given all the way from Nada Dhanumanisam to Swara Raga Sudha and things like that. He has done Divyanama Sankirtanam and Utsava Sampradaya Kritis. Even the Jagadanandaka, the beauty about the Jagadanandaka is the Swara patterns, which is like a Sarvalagu, which is so easy for us. That's why it's called Gana Ragam, and because of the positioning of the Rishabha Stuti and things like that in the thing. That's what makes it Ragam. Not that other Ragams are not important. So in addition to that, he has visited so many places. Kovai Pancharatnam. He seemed to be so nice social reformer. In Majanaki, he says about the importance of lady young Sita Mailana on a Kiara Pugal Kudupan Kekra Stansala. Ade Sundare Sorinila, Unode Araga Pata Troilok Ramba, Saraswatila, and Argun Kekra Suras Sundare Sorinila. In the Madri were a common idea. Adamulan and Santamilena, Saukamurana, Santamuleda, Saukamuledu Solrar. Woman Paka Paka, White Kill and Yenala Venmo. சொல்லிட்டு, and he finally he concludes that. I think the most important thing I wanted to say is, in conclusion, this is my most important thing which I wanted to say. Saint Tyagaraja's various moods were reflected in his songs such as sadness, elation, the eternal conflict between doubt, despair, and hope of being united with his Ishtadeva, Lord Rama, at all times. I like to conclude by quoting Padma Varadan, which is a rare book I read in Kritimani Malai, about how Saint Tyagaraja expresses his emotion in his song, because as part of the second question I prepared this. Tyagaraja comes through as an all-time great like Shakespeare in his assessment of circumstances, in his command over the language he chose to communicate in his ready wit and perennial sense of propriety in sentiment and language use, in his most human reactions to life's iniquities, in his devastating forthrightness, be it in his relationships or in his unique equation with his chosen deity Rama. And this is what I want to say. Thank you.
Wonderful fitting finale. Thank you so much. We are at 12:15. I know we were hoping that others will also chime in a little bit, but unfortunately we are out of time. But so I just want to first of all thank Sri Shiva Vishnu Temple for giving us this opportunity to do a deep dive on Tyagaraja Swami for this last 1 hour 15 minutes. Personally, this is a huge blessing for me to share the platform with such great stalwarts who have soaked into Tyagaraja Swami's music, Subash Garu, Hema Madam, Professor Shivakumar, and Shivakumar Jagadisan sir, and hearing their experiences of Tyagaraja Swami has been a great blessing, and I'm sure everyone will be sharing my views about the awesomeness of this session, and the amount of collective knowledge about Tyagaraja Swami that has been generated here. So I would like to conclude this session just by saying that, we all need a guru, and Tyagaraja Swami, guru to show us the right path in various facets of our life, be it music, be it a spiritual path, be it how to lead a life, be it anything. Tyagaraja Swami himself in his composition exemplifies the role of a guru. Guru leka etuvanti guniki teliyagabodu, right? So he says, what is the value of anyone who has great qualities unless he has the guru? Just like that, Tyagaraja Swami, I would like to say, Tanuvu Sutta Dhana Dara Dayadi Bandhavulu Jani Inchi Chedaru Jalini Karunato Manasu Nantakaseyu Mandu Anuchu Tattva Bodhana. The one who does all of this is Tyagaraja Swami himself, is what I'm trying to convey for a lot of us. That is, he applies the medicine of Tattva Bodha in different facets of our life, of giving us the way of knowledge, giving us musical wealth, piquing our intellect, like Shiva sir was saying earlier, in different ways by using such amazing literary examples and word plays in his compositions. So Tyagaraja Swami is a delight for everyone, and in the end we should surrender to him, pay our obeisances as our guru in day-to-day life. Thank you so much. Namaskar.
Thank you.
Namaskar.
Thank you.